This video contains spoilers. If you have not been Persona 5 Strikers, please, I urge you to wait until you beat Persona 5 Strikers to watch this video. With that being said, let us start the video. Persona 5 Strikers was a game that I thought would be a really good sequel, if done right. However, it seems to have missed the mark by quite a bit. Now, I'm not just saying this for retention or to clickbait you, I'm really disappointed with Persona 5 Strikers. With its story alone, I know going into this that this was a Dynasty Warriors type game since it was by the same devs, and although I didn't like Dynasty Warrior games, from the vague memories I have playing the Gundam one on the PS3 and playing one of the PS2 ones that I just don't know the name of. However, that's besides the point. Persona 5 Strikers is different from those games, so without further ado, let's get into this review. I know this is before the story segment, however, this is the main reason you want Persona 5 Strikers, is for the fan services, which there is a lot in here. This game has some really good moments, like them actually not getting rained on during the fireworks festival, and the way they interact with each other honestly made me laugh a couple of times. Although I liked the fan service in this game, there is one character that made me hate this game. And that would be for real? Ryuji. I don't know who wrote the script for this game, but oh my god. He says for real so many times that I almost was tempted to switch the JP's VAs on. Like, don't get me wrong. In P5 and P5R, I really didn't mind it, but he says it so much it genuinely becomes annoying. I'm fine with even the Discord at everyone eagerly.
Quite a bit. You thanks for your patronage. How many would you? You thanks for your patronage. How many would you like? You thank you very much. How many would you like? You put it to good use. Okay.
But Ryuji, nah. One thing that actually really annoyed me in this game was the requests also. Now, why am I including it in the fan service category? Because characters will ask you to do things as requests, which the game makes you think an event will happen, like, you know, a social link event. With said character will be unlocked after completing it, but no, that's not the case at all. They just talk about it. For example, you go out of your way to figure out how to get the legendary ramen shop to go there with Ryuji. And once this side quest is completed, Ryuji's just basically like, that ramen is gonna be awesome. And that's really all we get from that. And that's just awful. Same with Makoto breaking watermelon. You go out of your way to genocide the Jack Frost to train her, and she just talks how she's ready to do it, but you never see it happen in game. You know what it makes a Persona game? A Persona game? The goddamn social links and the events that happen within those social links. So having these requests make you do stuff for the characters makes you think you're gonna get rewarded with an event, but no, that's legitimately not the case. It just feels super under-delivered, and I really think that they had to cut a few corners because of whatever deadline this game had to come out, and that really sucks, because it just makes the player not feel like anything meaningful happened in this game between you, the protagonist, and the protagonist's supposed friends that actually don't do anything. They just talk about what's going to happen that never actually happens, which just feels strange overall in general. Also, another thing that you've seen in the little intro thing that I made up, literally everything that made Persona 5 good in terms of the, you know, other characters that were the main cast aren't included in this game. For some weird reason. I get Sophia took over everything for those characters, but it still just feels like I just want to see them again because I really like those characters, and they essentially just were like, nope, don't even see Sai in this game. You just hear High Heels walk up to Zenkichi while he's being interrogated. Like, why? It just seems really, really lazy to me, and by that point, the game did feel rushed, but we'll get into that into the story aspect of things, but still, literally the best fan service they could have gotten, they really just did not deliver on it at all. This story starts off strong, don't get me wrong, but presents itself as trying to be like its predecessor by starting off the game with so many questions like, why is Joker jumping off a fucking building? Why is he being attacked by so many shadows? Simple, to copy the opening captivation of P5. However, P5 did it in a way it constantly reminded you to figure out who the traitor was your entire playthrough. This adds nothing but flair, so you, the players, are like, wow, real-time combat with turn-based RPG mechanics? Which sure does the job, but I do think they overhyped this intro, which is later revealed to be the end of the first gel. So all that anticipation built up dies after you beat the first gel. I think personally it should have just started with you being reunited with Joker's friends instead of this crazy intro, so the game can build tension progressively instead of spoiling something that didn't need to be shown till later. Oh, wait, I said spoiled? Yeah, didn't I? Yeah, the story spoon feeds you like a child who hasn't played a story game before. I'll get into that once I start talking towards Zenkichi, but before I do that, I must talk upon the main plot of this game. There is a change of heart epidemic. The Phantom Thieves are expected to be behind it. You and Ryuji accidentally go into the metaverse, get captured and stepped on. And then you find humanity's companion in the garbage after Joker interacts with a strange cube, in which the police start snooping around the thieves. Then once Zenkichi arrives, he basically is like, you have to find out who's behind it, or you're getting arrested, which sets you off on trying to find out who the true culprit is. Sort of like you did in the original game. Sounds reasonable enough, but when you realize just how boring the rulers of these jails are, it starts to irk at you. Like, why do I care about progressing, for that matter? To summarize, once you confront these rulers of these jails, one of your party members somehow becomes a goddamn psychiatrist. Is like, I've been through hell before, I know what you're going through, there's another path you can take, this is the wrong one, open your eyes and face yourself. You're not me! I actually mean, you don't know me! Which then they become a big monster thing. It's not like you're playing a separate game, fighting them or anything. More on this when I get to the gameplay side of things. The problem I have with this is repetitiveness. It really comes down to how generic these rulers are. It really doesn't give the oomph like the antagonists from P5 did at all in this game. Instead, I feel like I'm playing Persona 5 Psychiatrist. The only way I can describe these characters really is On's Band Makeover, a catchy wannabe, I'm hungry for some honey, and daddy issues. I don't know, with Persona 5 they had a little bit more spice to them. Not that they were entirely good, which reminds me I never finished my review for P5R, so get subscribed for that. Okay, now that I've talked upon the rulers of the jails, let's discuss the new main characters of this game, which, don't worry, there's only like 5 if you consider Emma to be an entity. Anyways, let's start with Zenkichi. Overall, his character is really good. To his lines, to his development as a character is really remarkable for what this game is.
What even is this? Where am I?
Questions. This is a jail. You are currently located within a jail.
Wait, who are you?
I am Sophie, humanity's companion. Nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to... What?
And honestly, I have nothing really bad to say about his character, or Akane for that matter, other than this was already done in Persona 4 with Dojima and Nanako, with some differences especially with how they treat one another. I really didn't mind another perspective on this because the differences in Kiji's working really far from home, while Akane is just not taking his BS. I think it's more apparent to his character growth once he starts caring for the Phantom Thieves, which makes him stop the police siege on where they were staying. So once he awakens to his persona, I really felt like he grew a bit as a character, but honestly that's all I remember from that jail because it just went by too fast. I really wish Akane had more story after this jail because it would have helped the players feel more engaged with Zenkichi and Akane's story. Another flaw I found to be annoying in this game is when the police are on the Phantom Thieves' tail, they go from Zenkichi's hideout to Kyoto without being caught by the police, which really made me feel they were never really in any type of danger. So the tension to keep the player on the edge of their seats just is non-existent. Also, you hear a conversation with Kubaraki and Zenkichi throughout your entire playthrough, which basically tells you Zenkichi's going to arrest the Phantom Thieves regardless if they get the true culprit. Imagine this not being told to the player and how much of a plot twist this would actually be. Like, I really would have felt it to be like the best way to do it, but they really just spoon feed you about it throughout the entire playthrough, and so there's like no hype for when it actually happens. Alright, now let's talk about Sophia. She is an interesting character and you really don't learn about her till the end of the game. Sure, there was character development at Okinawa Jail, where her other self calls her useless, and Ryuji suddenly gets so frustrated he says,
So shut the fuck up, idiot!
He's really giving the disembodied voice what for?
for some reason. Like, this scene really just made me be like, huh. Sure, her shadow is being nasty, but this feels forced for Yuji to use the meme word he couldn't say in P5. Alright, with that out of the way, let's talk upon Ichinose and Sophia's relationship. Basically, Ichinose created Sophia to learn about the human heart, because when her parents died, she locked herself up in her room and wouldn't say anything to her classmates because of her trauma. So once Sophia asks her about the human heart, she freaks out and shuts off the PC, which any normal human being would do when an AI asks about a human heart. They may try to take over the world and shit, you never know. Then she creates Emma, a self-reflection on how she views her life as a doll, as the students viewed her, which was why Emma became bloated with filling everyone's desires, because why live when your problems can be handled with a simple app. So the dynamic between Ichinose and Sophia is really heartfelt. It really made me like Ichinose and Sophia a lot more, although I already like Sophia's character beforehand with how she just interacts with the cast. Anyways, taking down the false god. I swear to God, I don't ever want to hear that word again after. It was very annoying. However, the ending was fine. I would have been upset if Sophie and Ichinose weren't reunited. The fact that they were is bittersweet. However, overall, I'm disappointed because you do 3 antagonists that feel like more filler than anything, and then you go to Okinawa Jail, which sure has some plot element with Sophia, but still feels like filler. Like, don't get me wrong, if the jail rulers were more interesting and there was a scene with On talking to Alice so it could invest you in these characters more, it wouldn't have felt like they were like thrown away. Also, the press conferences is consistently reused, at least the room. It just irks at you sometimes and you're just like, P5 I don't think reused it that much. I mean, at least with the same scene, which also in some points looks like they wanted to do animated cutscenes for some things, but they were just under some sort of restraint or something, and they just put a JPEG on the TV screens that made it. That was the animated cutscene. Just all things overall made me feel that this game was super underdelivered and just underwhelming. Like, just the story alone, like, it could have been better. I think P5R's story is a lot better than this one because, like, even though it's short, the characters just overall have a lot more development in P5R than they do in this game. In P5R, there's really not a character that feels like they're thrown away after their palace is done. I don't know, I just was not a fan of this game because it just felt like things went too fast and there was too many style moments and too many characters that felt to be filler. So gameplay. The gameplay of this game / combat more or less is quite weird in a way. It's unique, but it's also very generic, is the best way as I can describe it. So sure, there's persona combat mixed in with real-time combat, and it does a good job of doing that. However, the base combos feel kind of bad in a sense. So like, you just pressing X per se, it just really does do nothing, so you have to do a combination of X and Y to actually like do meaningful combos to like get damage done. So I've really just found myself spamming those a lot because what ends up happening at the beginning of the game is that you are so limited in your SP that it becomes annoying to actually use your persona and go in and out from the real world and back to the metaverse. It's just it's basically just being happy all the time, in Persona 3, and then just like going back to the front harders, and then like going back into like whatever floor you were on. Which I can't talk about experience of that. I never cheated in Persona 3 with P-Edge files to use that. Okay, I did. But it's because it was a big stream grind fest, okay? I streamed the entire thing. I needed to. Alright. Even though there's some major flaws with this combat system, I think it's fun to mindlessly play instead of being aware to play, because once you're aware, it starts to irk at you like, Jesus Christ. Kingdom Hearts 2 came out before this, and they still couldn't get it right. As bad as that is to say. I get it, it's a Dynasty Warriors clone slapped onto another name. I mean, this game's more responsive than most Dynasty Warrior games, especially the ones that I played on the PS3 and PS2, so I'll give this game that, but just like Zenkichi feels like a Dynasty Warriors character, and he's absolutely trash to use. His buffs do nothing, and he's just overall a bad character to use. His AI somehow one-shots last boss stuff, so there, yeah. I don't know how, he just does it. The main flaw of using him, right, is his health eats away when you use his buff. So the main flaw of using his buff is fire damage will essentially hurt him as you're using him, and you need to attack enemies as fast as possible for you to be cured. But the thing is, it should work in theory, but it doesn't, because he doesn't heal fast enough. So you essentially just die as Zenkichi, while the AI just plays it better and one-shots final boss stuff, which is absolutely crazy. Also, another thing is, I don't like having all the party members available to me right away. I wish there was some sort of like limitation to like, you're only supposed to use these specific party members here for this, amount of time, because of certain circumstances that like the other team members had to do something else, etc. But this game fails to do that, so you become too used to the party that you use throughout the entire game, and it becomes a major flaw at the end, because at the end of the game it splits off the party members into separate, parties, so it just becomes a clutterfuck. And not only that, it becomes like, oh, this character's unrelevant, maybe I should grind. And I'm just like, this is just randomly being introduced, okay. And I would have liked that endgame part to be introduced somewhere else in the game than just being introduced at the very last boss, because I have no time to prepare or to, like think, oh, this could happen again, maybe I should grind these characters. Oh no, it just happened right at the end of the game, which is just sad to say. It just didn't work out as well as I think the devs thought. And another thing that did bother me is how Showtime's represented in this game. Now, you might say, oh, this game's created, it should be completely fine. Now, I don't mean how it, works, I just mean how I can visually see it. There is so much shit going on in this game where you, at times, you know if when you're getting hit, and when something else is, draining your health, so it just becomes like, oh, I'm being hit, I'm dead. So, when Showtime is available, you don't know it's available until you look at the bottom left of your screen and you're like, oh, it's available, time to use it. In Persona 5 R, it visually shows it, for you to use it. This game doesn't do that. And you just mindlessly kill enemies, having that showtime there probably for who knows when, and then you're like, oh, I could have used that there. And yeah, it's kind of wow, you could have patched it to make it more more seeable, but yeah, it's just there's really no audio cues, and if there is, it's very hard to tell because of how much is going on in the game, and so it's too much all at once. So having visual indicators saying, it's ready, not just white text with the buttons, give me something that have a background to it so that I at least can see it's ready to use, like Persona 5 Royal did. And so the last thing I'll discuss is the bosses. They're absolutely horrendous in this game. Now, of course, once you level up, it's better, but the first few like trails that you do, it feels like you're of level before you get to the boss. Then you get to the boss, and then it's like you feel very weak. And then just how the bosses work, it's you don't really stagger them either with a lot of your hits. You have to like do some sort of environmental attack to stagger them at times. I mean, sure, some weaknesses do work, but it the limitation you have on your SP mixed in with the environmental stuff, it just becomes a big hassle. And then like you just trying to do combos on them also becomes a hassle because they'll just like plow right through you as you're doing your attacks. It's absolutely like horrendous. I don't know though, maybe I was expecting too much from a Dynasty Warriors game type thing, but yeah, I just wish there was more polish in those aspects of the game. It just would have made my, you know, time playing more enjoyable than feeling super frustrated to every boss that I got in this game. This section is very dedicated to nitpicks, as this is a first impressions of someone buying the game. So let's start with the name Persona 5 Strikers. If you are well adjusted with finding news upon the latest games, you will know that Persona 5 Strikers was named Scramble in Japan, and just about everyone that I followed in the Persona circle knew about that. So the people that knew it by Persona 5 Scramble were eagerly awaiting it for the game to come out as Persona 5 Scramble. So let me ask you, how do you kill hype for a game? Simple. You just wait over a year to make it available in the West and rename it to the abbreviation of what it was originally called in other areas, and where it came out first more specifically. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what's called westernizing, and it's annoying. Look, I get the name didn't sell in JP as Scramble, so a few people sat in a room at Atlas West and was like, how do we sell this game? One guy says, I think we should keep the name the same since the West audience basically knows it by Scramble. Then Bob says, hey, you see that text there? Strikers? And the boss is like, jaw drop. We are calling it Strikers, baby. Yeah, I don't know. To me, the name was fine. What this game needed was actual marketing instead of a name change to at least give people more interest in the game. Next, the deluxe edition is a complete ripoff on Steam, more particularly the OST. You see, usually with OSTs that are tacked on as a bonus that have the files of the OSTs in the game's directory, but not here. It's encrypted into the UniUp that's only there to serve one purpose, and to present the booklet with the music playing in the background. Which sounds good in theory, but is awful because no, you don't have access to the music that you thought you were getting when paying for it. P4G actually did this a lot better because it did both of these things right. You got the OST in the directory along with the scans for the games for the art book separate. So I don't know why they would mess something up so silly when there wasn't a problem with doing it on P4G. It just is so strange to me. This is another thing that feels underwhelming in this game. Everything just feels too limited. Now, don't get me wrong, Persona always has a feeling of limitation for the player of going to places, but this feels almost outrageous. There's a place that looks like you can walk to, and it's just like, no. Now shit, I wouldn't have minded keeping the game in Shibuya if this was the result of exploring in other areas and having such a limited scope of where you can go. The metaverse areas are actually really open in comparison to the IRL counterpart. So my gripe is, if these areas are already modeled with collision, why cut it from the IRL part? Prevent the player from exploring the area more. Again, I'm gonna say time restraints. It feels they wanted to do more exploring in the IRL world, but just couldn't. If they had a little bit more time, I really felt like they could have too. That would have been more of a memorable experience to me to be able to explore these areas, etc. But you just can't. Overall, it was pretty hard in this game, but for a good reason. Alice has the ability to make better stories to sequels of other Persona games, so it really makes me wonder if they were too overly confident in the success of P5 that they thought this game would just sell with little work put into it. With the lack of care for a lot of the characters in this game, it really shows, and terms of the antagonists. However, I did have some fun, but overall it just wasn't the game I was expecting it to be. And honestly, I didn't know what to expect after P5, maybe an arena game, but this was the opposite, which real-time combat can work with Persona elements if done right, but they made some of the cast feel like they were like worth using, and on top of that, having bosses feel completely different from the main game made me feel annoyed fighting them overall. Its story too, for the most part, is forgettable, and although it has some good moments, it's just not something to keep players' interest up in the game. Lastly, the only way I could see the arena game doing well under the Persona 5 name is if Arxis takes their time on it, and the story director plans a good story. And I really wouldn't mind if the, spoilers took some stuff from P4A, and especially that ending, and, did something good, did something badass and did everything right and planned, everything to be very consistently and having some good plot. It would really, really be cool. I don't know. For all fans, if they did this like complete story right with the arena game where P4AU left off from. So I really, really think that would be a dope story if done right, but I don't know if I'll else be able to do it. Ellis should have also continued off of Persona 5 Royal instead of OGP5, because it just is an argument now to which one's canon. Is Royal canon? Is OGP5 canon? So in the next game or sequel, I hope the arena game is from Royal and not OGP5, because I really liked Persona 5 Royal's story and then overall made it a better Persona 5. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end of the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I really hope you enjoyed this video, because it definitely took a long time to make, so I appreciate you all, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.